Hey guys, I don't know if you can hear me over the birds and the sounds of my own footsteps, but I'm talking. Yeah, earlier I said I was going to record it sideways like this, but I looked at the recording and for some reason it still came up like this, so I don't know how to get it to work. Is there like a button I'm missing or something? Or is this my model phone doesn't record like that? I don't know. But earlier I said I felt like making another video, but I didn't know what I wanted to make it about. It had something in me, but I couldn't exactly figure out what it was. Well, after going through some like year-old nostalgia, I watched some Matt Pat's last theory videos. Not the last one he did about the VR game, but the ones before them. And well, it just got me in the feels, man, because I realized something, especially at the end of the very last one, when Matt Pat was giving a speech about the game series. Back in 2014, back in 2014, when the first game came out, it was just a simple little horror game. A last-ditch effort to try to get big before he gave up and moved on with something else in his life. After his other games failed, sadly. And there was some hidden lore there, but mainly it wasn't all about that. I think the hidden lore was just there as like a little Easter egg for fun, just to give people a reason why the animatronics are alive. I don't think Scott planned for it all to expand out into what it became, but that's what happened. He didn't know if it was going to get big or not. He just did it, and if it got big, yes, but if it didn't, oh well. He just made it. And look at where it got him. It exploded and became a new franchise. Within just a year. Most things, movies, shows, other games, books, you make one thing and then either... Jesus Christ, dude. Anyway, usually either almost a year later if not a year later or more, is when you finally make the next big thing in the franchise. Because usually it takes a while to make stuff, but with FNAF, it was a fairly simple game to make. It's just flat photos and only a few animations. Simple, it's easy to make. So even though he didn't originally intend for it, the second game came out 3 months after the first one. Boom. And then before the first year anniversary, he already had 4 games. And in that time, the story expanded and expanded. The first game had little charm to it. And I feel each game has its own charm to it. A little bit of the original game's charm, plus its own unique charm to go along with it. Hell, even the ones that people don't like FNAF World, I liked that game. It had its charm to it. And even though the story got too convoluted for some people, too hard to figure out, some things didn't fit together and some pieces didn't make sense. And things that were established earlier in the series got retconned and changed later. Some people started dropping out on the fan base at different points. Some dropped out at FNAF 2 some dropped out after FNAF 1 because they were arguing whether or not FNAF 2 was a sequel or prequel. And then I guess once they found out it was a prequel, they were salty that they were wrong and they left. Some people dropped out after FNAF 3. I mean, story-wise, some people kept watching the gameplay because it's fun. But story-wise, some people dropped out after FNAF 3 because they didn't like the purple guy was killed off so soon in the series. FNAF 4, people couldn't figure out the story right away like they did with the first 3. World, well, some people didn't like it. And even though it's supposed to be a separate world, it's connected to the original games in a way. That confused people. SL, it had a tiny bit of the original game's charm, but it had its own charm to it, and it felt like a new game entirely, which I guess was kind of the point of it. Not as a completely different game like FNAF World, but still, it was the change that the series needed, in Mark's opinion. But some people, got confused again because the timeline. How is Purple Guy? Yeah, whatever. And then the books were released, and they had their own charm to them as well. And the story got a little hard to figure out and hard to swallow at some points in the books. Some people stick to the games and avoid the books. Some people who were on board with the books dropped out on the books because the story, like Matt Pat said, once it was revealed that Charlie was a robot, it kind of added a few plot holes. But whatever. So, the original game series, the first 4 years of FNAF. The FNAF, most popular things on the internet get a week to a month. FNAF got a whole year. And that was shocking. It started to die down after 4. There was still kind of there in World, but it was very, very less. Like, very less so. It got brought back up with SL, but still not as much as the original first year. And then came year 3, where the second book was released in June, but that was like the only big thing, really. We went slightly over a year with no new FNAF game. And a lot of people dropped out, not just because they couldn't figure out the story, but because they just couldn't stand waiting. Even I temporarily dropped out. I didn't forget about it completely. I kept my eye on it, waiting for the next big thing to happen, but I wasn't so locked onto it because there was just nothing happening. Plus, I had a life, sort of. I had friends at school, and plus I had other things, like other franchises that I was a fan of. So I just kind of temporarily stepped away, but didn't leave the fan base entirely. Then when FNAF 6 was released, oh my god. Some people jumped back on board. And it also lost some people, like Kat. She doesn't like 6. Everyone loves 6 because they say it's the perfect little bow to wrap up everything. Kat doesn't like it. Because, I don't know. She could explain in her own video in the future. I'm not going to explain for her. Yeah, she gave up after 2 because she didn't like how Purple Guy was killed off so soon. That was her favorite character. So she kind of stopped with trying to piece the story together and stop trying to make it make sense. Because it just was impossible, But even with it coming out so long later, and the story having some retcons in it, but it was also trying to wrap up the story. It still had some of the original FNAF charm in it. That little Scott Cawthon touch, Then year 4, we got the final book, and then we had Ultimate Custom Night. And I think Ultimate Custom Night is the end of the original FNAF era. Sure, you could say it ended after the original year, the first year with the first 4 games, because that's when the hype started, that's when the popularity started to die down. Or you could say it ended after SL because there was a big gap between the games. But I say the original FNAF era is the first 4 years, and I think it ended after Ultimate Custom Night. Because now the next big game in the series, VR Help Wanted, isn't made by solely Scott. It's made by a company and released mainstreamly on consoles. Yeah. So the original charm of it is dead. Not dead, but just put to rest. When Scott makes Into Madness, that's his game. That's his own thing. He didn't have any company work on it with that one. At least I hope he's not going to. That game will have some of the original charm to it. But I feel with this game, VR Help Wanted, I think FNAF has gotten too mainstream and too big now, especially with all the shit tons of merch. I feel like the original era started to die when it got merch, but it wasn't fully dead until after Ultimate Custom Night, because that's when the original story that Scott planned was capped off. The purple guy in hell for all eternity being tortured by Golden Freddy's spirit, Cassidy. Or in the Ultimate Custom Night world, it's some male kid. But in the original games, it's Cassidy, as hinted by the Survivor logbook. See, even though Ultimate Custom Night's a different world, and it has one thing different, or two things different, it still hints towards the original lore. That's the kind of thing I was explaining in my F Universe video. But yeah, I count the first 4 years of FNAF as the original era, and the original era is over. It's gone. Those were good times. Not saying that this new era is gonna suck, I'm just saying the charm, it won't be the same. Of course I'm excited for the new game, but it won't, I don't know if it's gonna have that original charm. I don't think it will. I just want to say thank you, Scott, for giving us 4 years of something great. Some people may have not liked FNAF, and some people may not have liked the fan base. Some people may have left the fan base, but hey, every fan base has its toxic members. So those people were just looking at the wrong places. I will admit I used to be one of those toxic people. I've gotten better since then. Still a little bad, but I'm getting better. I'm a recovering toxic. But don't look at me as the mascot for the entire fan base. Look at Scott himself. He's a nice person who clearly doesn't care about the money. He isn't just in it for the money. He donated so much to charity on one live stream. Not only to help the charity out, but also to casually hint at sister location before it came out and give lore clues. If he was really a greedy man, like most people become when they get big, he wouldn't give away that much. He's still a good man. He's a Christian. And he's a normal man, too. Despite what some people think, he hates FNAF porn and FNAF. He thinks it's disgusting. So he's still a normal, decent man. He's a good man. I hope to meet him one day. Give him a hug. But yeah. Thank you, Scott, for giving us a great 4 years. Even if the story did become too hard to follow, the charm was still there. At least the charm was still there. The original era of FNAF is over. Era number 2, the mainstream era, will begin May 21st, when VR comes out. That's what I wanted to say. I knew I wanted to make a video about something, but I couldn't. I felt like there was something that must be said, but I couldn't pinpoint it. Now I have. Scott's probably never going to see this, ever. Because why? What are the chances, you know? Maybe if I put his name in the title, maybe he'll see it. Probably not, though. But if he ever does, by chance, see it, thank you, Scott. Thank you so very, very much. I can't wait for Into Darkness, or Madness, oops. I can't wait for Into Madness. I'm more excited for that than I am the VR game, surprisingly. Believe it or not. But yeah. Thank you. Thank you for all the hard work you've done. I hope great things happen to you and your family. I hope you have a wonderful life. If Daco plays his cards right in one of these new FNAF games that are actually being made by companies, maybe he could end up being in the game as a voice somewhere. Daco's a big person in FNAF right now. Not right now, since the beginning. Well, at the very beginning. Since FNAF 2, Daco's been a big person in FNAF, along with Mark. Daco actually beat 50-20. Mark didn't. Ooh, Mark, you have to give up your crown. I'm joking. Yeah. I don't count Ultimate Custom Night as FNAF 7. I count that as another extra game, like FNAF World. For me, it's the main 6 games, and then 2 extra games. That's me. But if you want to count it as FNAF 7, go ahead. I'm not counting VR as FNAF 7 either. I want to count Into Madness as FNAF 7, but Scott clearly implied that 6 is the last one. So, Into Madness is probably another game. Hell, maybe it's the start of a new story. Who knows? But thank you, Scott. Well, that's all I have to say. See you guys next time. Peace.